Hey everybody. Okay, I am doing this video completely and totally off the cuff. I'm sitting here in my office and it's something that I wanted to address, and I feel like this tab group would be a really good place to kind of put it. With New Year's coming up and all of that good stuff, there are going to be a ton of New Year's resolutions. You're going to make them, I have my own, everybody has them, and there's nothing inherently bad with New Year's resolutions. And one of those resolutions that tends to pop up, obviously, is losing weight or changing your body composition in one way or the other. And one thing that I wanted to address here, because this tends to be more prevalent in the beginning of the year, is the idea of going on some sort of fad diet, be that a ketogenic diet, so super low carb, be that a low fat diet, be it an all shake diet. There are any number of these diets out there, and I will tell you that almost all of them work if you follow them correctly. And they don't work because they're magic. They work because they all have one thing in common. By one way or another, they get you to eat less food than you're currently eating. They give you a set of guidelines to follow that if you follow them, you almost without fail, almost without fail will be eating less calories than you burn on a daily basis, or at least less than you've been eating. So we can look at examples. Let's just take low carb, for instance, because this tends to be super popular, and I've done it before, and it works. It completely and totally works. And in fact, some of you here in this group may be on a type of a low carb plan, but it's not because the low carb is magic. It's because that set of guidelines that lead you to low carb works better with your lifestyle and works better for how you want to handle your diet. So if we look at this a little further, some people are really into the whole flexible dieting approach, where you're going to have a pretty good idea of what your macronutrients are on a daily basis. You're going to have a pretty good idea of what your protein and carbs and fat and your overall calories are on a day-to-day basis. That's going to require some counting. That's going to require some fairly specific tracking. It's going to require that you weigh and measure a lot of your food, if not all of your food, and it works. It's just playing a numbers game, and it is playing a numbers game the most transparent way possible by just simply counting numbers, making sure that you have the right amount of the different macronutrients for your goal, and then making sure you hit those numbers day in and day out. A lot of you, probably the majority of you here in this group, that's exactly what you do. That's what I do, and if you have the time to do it, and you have the mental energy to do it, and you're motivated enough to do it, then I feel like that's probably the best way, because you're going to be able to eat the widest variety of food. And so I think the whole flexible dieting, macro counting thing is probably the best way, if your lifestyle, if your schedule even permits that. On the other side of that, you're going to have something like a low carb diet, which essentially is going to say you can eat as much food as you want as long as you keep your carbs below a certain number. So maybe you only have to kind of borderline track carbohydrate to know exactly where you are as far as staying within the ranges that you've been given, or what have you. So say you go on a diet like that, you've not been on a diet, you just go on a low carb diet and you say, I'm just going to eliminate all carbohydrates, my diet is going to be anything but carbs. So what does that do inherently? It eliminates an entire macronutrient from your diet, and it happens to be the macronutrient that's the easiest to overeat. And I probably went over this example with a ton of you. What's easier to overeat? A bag of grilled chicken breast or an entire container of Cinnamon Toast Crunch? The Cinnamon Toast Crunch, which I love, is infinitely easier to overeat than grilled chicken breast. And on a low carb diet, that Cinnamon Toast Crunch is not an option. It just goes away. So what you've done is you've eliminated foods. Typically, a lot of those carbohydrate foods are going to be what we would consider junk food. Not all of them, but a good deal of them. You've eliminated those out of your diet, and by doing so, you have, by necessity, your food is going to have to come from protein and fat. What do protein and fat do? Protein and fat fill you up. They're typically things that are, you've got your chicken breasts and your nut butters and your fish and your beef and your fibrous vegetables have minimal carbs. When you eliminate carbs, you are cutting out a huge, just a shopping cart worth of foods that are easy to overeat, and bringing in a lot of foods, if you're going to eat it all, which I would recommend that you do, a lot of foods that are very difficult to overeat. So what have you done? You have lowered your calories just by the types of foods that you're eating. You could eat as much as you want, chicken breast and steak, to a point, but if you're not consciously trying to eat as much as possible, you'll probably self-moderate pretty well as far as eating the meat and the vegetables and fat and things like that. Peanut butter can get iffy, especially if you're like me, if you like to eat a ton of peanut butter and you can just spoonful after spoonful, that can get you in trouble. But tying it back from the beginning, there's nothing magical about a low-carb diet. It's a way to get you to eat less food, therefore you lose fat, you increase protein in your diet, so you're more satisfied. You're probably going to increase fat a little bit in your diet, you're more satisfied. The protein is holding on to and or helping you build lean muscle mass, and boom, low-carb diet looks magical, and it's not. Just like any diet, no diet is going to be a magic bullet. There are certain rules, calorie balance, macronutrient ratios that they have and they will stand the test of time as far as making the biggest impact on your body composition and fat loss or weight loss or muscle gain. But I just wanted to encourage you, don't buy into the fads this new year. Let's really kind of stick to the basics. If low carb is something that helps you, because in low carb you don't necessarily, that was another thing I didn't mention, you don't necessarily, it would still be helpful, but you can almost get away with it without weighing and measuring things quite as strictly, just because the nature of the food is going to kind of dictate how much you eat. So if that's something that works better with your schedule, then certainly we can talk about, and that's something that you can consider. But don't think that it's magic, because it's not. It's just a diet that is causing you to adhere to a certain number of basic nutrition principles in one way or the other. So anyway, I hope this helps. I hope it wasn't too confusing. Like I said, I didn't make any notes. I typically have notes about this stuff. But I really wanted to get this out there because I feel like it's something pretty important to think about. If you have questions, as always, please just shoot me a message, shoot me an email, do whatever. If you want to set up your Skype call for this month, go ahead and get with me and let's set our Skype call up as well. I hope to hear from you soon. Thank you all so much for being such awesome clients. I enjoy working with every one of you. We'll talk soon. Happy New Year. Talk later. Bye.